Once again, I'm Rabbi Tuli Weiss, and I'm the one who sends you those Israel 365 emails every day. I hope that you're enjoying them, put a lot of time into them. And I wanted to talk to you today because it is Yom Haatzmaut, Israel's 64th birthday, Israeli Independence Day, and just an amazing day to be celebrating here in Israel. I wanted to share with you. I wrote an article on United with Israel that send you that link. I'll send you the link I wrote on United with Israel called My First Yom Haatzmaut. You could check that out later. It's been amazing. I wrote that article obviously before today, and so I was talking about how I was excited about spending the first Yom Haatzmaut here in Israel. And but today, having a day and spending it in the parks with all of the other Israelis and families and friends was incredible. And we got to see some new places that we were never before. And it's funny, it was probably actually my first Yom Haatzmaut of my life that spending it in America or in Columbus, wherever I've been on Yom Haatzmaut, the traditional classic thing that everybody does when they celebrate Yom Haatzmaut outside of the land of Israel is they eat falafel. This is probably my first Yom Haatzmaut in my life that I don't think I had falafel. Because in Israel what they do is they have hot dogs. So in Israel they're eating the American food, and in the rest of the world they're eating falafel. So that's just one thing that I thought was funny, but it was really a great day. And I wanted though to talk to you tonight about something that you may or may not be familiar with, that I like to think of as the controversy behind Yom Haatzmaut. The controversy behind Yom Haatzmaut. What is the controversy behind Yom Haatzmaut? What is controversial about Yom Haatzmaut? And I'm talking about the controversy amongst Jews. Not everybody looks at Yom Haatzmaut the same way. Okay, if you quickly turn to here, actually I'll turn for you to picture in our album. I'll try to use this photo album to make this webinar more interesting. But here is a picture that you see here. It's a Jerusalem Day in Zion Square, but it's this is the kind of parade that happens also today on Yom Haatzmaut. This is really how we envision Yom Haatzmaut in our mind, in our eyes, as everybody's wearing kachol v'lavan, blue and white, blue pants, dark pants, or skirts, and a white shirt. We think that the whole country is celebrating that way and waving their Israeli flags and just having a great time. But the truth of the matter is that not everybody in Israel, not everybody celebrates Yom Haatzmaut. Some people are actually opposed to Yom Haatzmaut. Why would anybody in the world, especially, I'm talking about religious people now, religious Jews, observant Jews, Jews who are concerned about what the Torah says, who are passionate about, committed to the Torah and what the Torah has to say. Why would people who are observant Jews be opposed to Yom Haatzmaut? That's my question. Anybody want to suggest an answer? Here, I'm going to type it in here. Okay, here's my question. Why would anyone be opposed to Yom Haatzmaut? Okay, I'll send you that question. And if anyone wants to suggest any answers, you could type it in there. They believe that Messiah will establish true independence. Very good, Paul. That's right. They believe that Messiah will establish independence. Very good. And we're going to talk about that today. Okay, that's the Yom Haatzmaut controversy. Okay, what exactly is Yom Haatzmaut? Eileen asks, what exactly is Yom Haatzmaut? Well, in Hebrew, Yom means day. Okay, Yom is day. Haatzmaut, Atzmaut means independence. So it's Israeli Independence Day, and it's sort of like the July 4th. If you're American, it's the July 4th of Israel. It was the day in 1948 when Ben-Gurion established independence, meaning that he read the Declaration establishing Israeli sovereignty and independence from the British Mandate. Hope I answered your question, but that is what today is here in Israel, and or for you wherever you are. So back to our question, why would some people be opposed to Yom Haatzmaut? What is the controversy behind Yom Haatzmaut? And so, like Paul said, people believe that the Messiah will usher in and establish independence. And so the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of biblical sources for the idea that in the future times, when the Jewish people return to Israel, it will be done in a very specific way. So if you're going to turn now I'm going to turn to these verses in our album, okay? And the verse here talks about, like flying birds, God will protect Jerusalem. The idea that we will return, this isn't exactly the right verse, but the verse that I was really thinking of is the verse where it talks about how God will return the Jewish people to Israel upon the wings of eagles. Okay, that's a famous idea, that God will return the Jews to Israel on the wings of eagles, and many have explained that over the years to mean that God will miraculously deliver Israel, and God will miraculously bring redemption to the world, and God will miraculously bring upon and herald in the Messianic era. That's something that is written in biblical sources, and just like the Exodus from Egypt, everything about it was entirely miraculous. The splitting of the sea, the 10 plagues, breaking every possible law of nature. Many have always believed, going back for hundreds of years, that will be the way that God will usher in the final redemption as well, and the final return to Israel as well, through miraculous means and breaking rules and laws of nature. That's how many have explained it. Furthermore, there's another issue that many look to the state of Israel as being, not only is the state of Israel not of significance, but some say that actually the state of Israel seems to represent anti-religious sentiments. The state of Israel seems to be something that was established first of all by secular people who were not concerned and were not necessarily establishing a Jewish commonwealth for the purpose of bringing people closer to God or bringing the Jews closer to Torah. It was done by secular people really for secular reasons. Theodor Herzl, the father of Zionism, we have many quotes from Herzl, was somebody who, for example, didn't even have a, okay? He didn't even have a, he wasn't trying to bring about a return to Torah and a return to God like the prophets describe and talk about. But here, here's a quote from Herzl: "If you will it, it is no dream." And some in the religious camp have pointed to quotes like this that say that if you will it, it is no dream. To say, that it's kind of arrogant for a person to say that, it's all in our hands, it's all in our ability, and we could accomplish anything if we just put our mind to it, and if we will it, it is no dream, we can accomplish it. And so some take issue with Herzl's philosophy, okay, and other secular Zionists' philosophy. So they say that that's how the state of Israel was founded, and therefore it can't be godly, it can't be religious, it can't have anything to do with the prophecies of the Bible. Okay? And the truth of the matter is that, number one, what do we do with those sources in the Bible that talk about the miracles that God will bring about when he returns the Jewish people to Israel? How do we deal with that? Okay. And also, how do we deal with the fact that how could the state of Israel have anything to do with biblical prophecy when in fact it was brought about by people who were totally, sometimes even anti-religious? That is the question. How do we deal with that? Okay, here's another quote from Herzl on the page that you have in front of you. Now, I'd like to refer you to Psalms. Actually, can't exactly even see which Psalm is because it's being blocked by the by my toolbar here. Psalms 126, though, I believe. So, when God will return the Jewish people to Israel, Psalm says, we will be like dreamers. A song of ascents. When God will return the captivity of Zion, we will be like dreamers. Okay, we will be like dreamers. That hayinu kecholmim. What does that exactly mean? We will be like dreamers. So there's two approaches to that. Okay, and I'm sure that if we were in a classroom setting, we could talk about it and spend a lot of time talking about why does King David use that image and that language specifically that we will be like dreamers. What does it mean to be a dreamer? So the first thing that comes to mind is that sometimes we have dreams, and the dreams are just totally fantastical. They're totally wild, right? We could do anything that we want. We could fly. We're 30 feet tall, or totally not bound by the rules and the laws of nature. Those are dreams. And so therefore, many say that when we return to Israel, we will be like dreamers, meaning that it will be so miraculous, it will just be like out of a dream, out of a wild, imaginative dream. Okay? However, the other explanation is that we will be like dreams means that we will be like people who are asleep. People whose eyes are closed to what is going on around us. That's what Psalms means when King David says, when God will return the captives of Zion, we will be like dreamers. We also will be dazed and out of it and asleep with our eyes closed, not fully realizing what's happening right in front of our very eyes. Okay? And so when it comes to redemption, there are two ways for it to unfold. There's the miraculous, divine intervention, just like the redemption from Egypt, which we obviously commemorated and even celebrated recently on Passover. That's certainly one model of divine redemption. And then there's another model. The other model is the more natural process, okay? Like the natural process of redemption that also is talked about in the prophets and in the Bible, like where Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9 talks about the king that will deliver the people will be a humble man riding on a donkey. That's obviously a very important verse, and he's referred to our king, our Mashiach, our Messiah. It's referred to as a king, but he will be somebody who will come to the world riding on a donkey. So everybody wants to know, why is he riding on a donkey? Why is not riding on a Mercedes-Benz, but why a donkey out of all of the animals? Why specifically a donkey? A donkey is a kosher animal, so why would he be riding a impure animal coming to the world, heralding in the Messianic era, riding on a donkey? And it's really because a donkey is a slow-moving beast of burden who represents this idea of natural process, nothing exciting, no fanfare, but the lowliest, most simple, most basic of animals, that will be how the Messiah will come to the world, not through great fanfare and smoke and mirrors and magic and miracles, but through a natural process. And what's interesting is that if you think about it, it sounds like, certainly on first impression, our first impression is that the miraculous redemption sounds much greater, much more impressive. And anything short of that would just be a disappointment. But the other school of thought is that no, just the opposite. That when we partner with God to bring about the redemption, and when we are involved in the natural process of redemption, that in fact is much greater. Because when God brings about redemption on our behalf, doing everything for us, so we're just passive and God is doing everything. The other way of looking at it, though, is that when He uses us to facilitate the unfolding of history and redemption, then in fact we are His partners and co-creators to the redemption. And in fact, therefore, it's even greater. So now when we look at the state of Israel, which one is the state of Israel? Is the state of Israel the miraculous, breaking the laws of nature kind of redemption? So the truth is that it really isn't. It really isn't. Israel is very much a result, a consequence of political events, historical forces, okay? And it didn't necessarily involve divine intervention. It was the result of a natural process, to some degree, because even those who weren't religious, like David Ben-Gurion, who never claimed to be a practicing Jew, he nevertheless said that when it comes to Israel, even he, the super rationalist, intelligent philosopher, he couldn't understand how some things worked here. Because in Israel, what he says is in Israel, in order to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. Things happen in Israel that can't be explained rationally. And if you're here, you understand what I'm talking about. Everyone encounters a miracle on almost a daily basis. Okay? Nevertheless, it's not the kind of miracles that we read about in Exodus, where God is literally splitting the sea and the water is standing to the left and to the right. Things do happen here that don't happen in other places. Nevertheless, most of the time they could really be explained by natural forces or historical and political forces. So therefore, when it comes to the state of Israel is really the second model of redemption. Not the model of miraculous divine intervention, but the model of a natural process. We're looking at your quotes here, and the creation of the state of Israel was still miraculous, Ruth is saying, and I agree with that. I agree with that, and that is true. But again, wouldn't it have been more obvious if God would have just kind of made it clear to us, made it totally obvious to not only us, but to the entire world, that this is His plan for humanity, to return the Jewish people to the land of Israel. Okay, so back to the controversy with which we started. The controversy about Yom Haatzmaut. How come not everybody celebrates Yom Haatzmaut? How come some people are even opposed to Yom Haatzmaut? And it's because there are those who believe, there are those, whose philosophy of life, whose theology, whose outlook in the world is such, they honestly believe with every fiber of their body that they expect God to deliver us single-handedly by Himself, okay? And to create a perfect state of Israel, one where everybody is God-fearing, one where we don't even have to have an army to defend ourselves, because the entire world will certainly recognize the one true God of Israel. We're all anticipating and hoping for that day, and there are those who say that anything short of that has no value. Anything short of that can't possibly have significance. But then there are others who say that Israel represents the beginning of our redemptive process. They admit that Israel is not perfect. There are problems, okay? But it is our job to make Israel a more perfect place. And that's the view, and that's really the philosophy of what we refer to as religious Zionists. I refer to myself as a religious Zionist Jew. Many, the religious Zionist camp has now, we'll talk about in a moment, but it's been expanded. There are religious Zionists who are not necessarily Jewish. But when the chief rabbinate of the State of Israel composed the prayer for the State of Israel in 1948, they used a very profound phrase in the prayer. It begins, "Our Father in heaven, bless the State of Israel, the first flowering of our redemption. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, our Father in heaven, Sur Yisrael, V'go'alo, our rock and our Redeemer, Barecha Medina Yisrael, bless the State of Israel, Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu, the first flowering of our redemption." What is that phrase, the first flowering of our redemption? So they intentionally chose to use this word, the flowering metaphor, this vision, this image of a flower that is sprouting, that is growing naturally. That's how they saw the redemption. The first flowering of our redemption is a natural process that obviously takes time to develop and goes slowly. And if you're looking at a flower growing, you might not even notice that every day it gets a little bit bigger, or every day it gets a little bit more beautiful. But on Yom Haatzmaut, we recognize that Israel is not only a miracle of, in terms of politically doesn't make any sense, which maybe, or what Ben Gurion was referring to maybe, that militarily is a miracle, doesn't really make any sense. But Yom Haatzmaut for religious Zionists is a day where we don't only celebrate our freedom and our independence, our sovereignty, our self-determination, but what we recognize is that Israel represents the first flowering, the beginning of our redemption. And I have to admit that what I've described here is not necessarily representative and accepted Jewish dogma, Jewish philosophy. Like I told you before, it's a controversy. There are those who carry on today, business as usual, don't recognize Yom Haatzmaut, and are maybe opposed to Yom Haatzmaut. I think that what I've tried to articulate, this vision of religious Zionism, how religious Zionists look at Yom Haatzmaut, just being honest, it represents a very small percentage of the Jewish people. Okay? Many secular Jews don't necessarily, they love Israel, perhaps, but don't necessarily ascribe to it religious significance. Okay? And then again, within even the observant, the Orthodox crowd. So again, a big percentage doesn't, again, attribute religious significance to the state of Israel because of all of the problems that we've outlined. There's no miracles. It's not the way that God would have wanted to do it. And it's secular, and there's problems, and so even amongst the observant community who sees God's hand in every area of daily life, somehow doesn't see God's role necessarily in the state of Israel. So those of us who do believe in the religious significance of the state of Israel are really a minority in the Jewish people, and the Jewish people obviously are tiny throughout the world. Yeah, what's remarkable is that even though there's a few Jews, a small percentage of Jews, right, maybe representative of a couple thousand people, tens of thousands of people, and that would be it, who attribute religious significance to the state of Israel. What is remarkable is that today we're not alone in our belief that the state of Israel has profound religious significance. There's also a small percentage, and I believe it's a small percentage, of non-Jews who also attribute profound religious significance to the state of Israel. Okay? And nevertheless, even though it's a small percentage, we're not alone. And that's entirely unprecedented in history, that non-Jews will attribute significance to the religious significance of Israel, to the return of the Jewish people to Israel, that Jews and non-Jews are together in our belief and in our hope for the high hopes and expectations for what could be from the state of Israel. That's something that's very, very unique, unprecedented, and I really believe that imposes upon us, and I say us because obviously as a religious Zionist Jew, I believe that the state of Israel has this great opportunities and historic spiritual potential. It must be the first flowering of our redemption. What's incredible, but again imposes a responsibility on those of us who think this way, right? Whether you're Jewish or you're not Jewish, there's a responsibility that we have because we're really in the minority. There's so few of us who believe this way that we have to share that with other people, especially those who look at Israel in only political terms. And when you look at it only in political terms, so then you could go either way. You could see Israel as the oppressor, or you could see Israel as the oppressed. We have to teach people that we have to look at Israel not as simply any other country in the world, but as God's plan in the embodiment of the first flowering of our redemption. And that's really my message for you today on Yom Haatzmaut. That's really the message of Israel 365 in general, is those of us, whether you're Jewish or you're non-Jewish, who see these Bible verses on a daily basis, you know that Israel is more than just a country on the map or a country that's in the news a lot. Israel is a place like no other exactly because it's the apple of God's eye. It's the center of His focus. That's the first quote here. That's the first quote that the land that the eyes of your God see out from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. That God is focused in on the land of Israel. That's the message of Israel 365. From the beginning of the year to the end of the year, God's eyes are on the land of Israel. And so even though it's not perfect, it's our duty to partner with God and to help make it perfect. That's what it's all about. That's what Israel is all about. And that's what Yom Haatzmaut, the one day of the year where all of our eyes and the whole world's eyes are on the land of Israel, that's what it's all about, to recognize that we have an opportunity to partner with God to bring about the redemption in natural process, And that's all of our hope, and that is our prayer, that in fact it should be so, and it should be soon, and it should be quickly, that the state of Israel represents and brings about that which we pray for, and the fulfillment of history and the redemption of the entire world.